Stop for 1 second before you scroll past this. If you've ever laid awake at 2 a.m. telling yourself, things will get better once this week is over, and then the week ended and nothing changed, I need you to actually watch this one, not just have it playing in the background while you do something else. Because here's what nobody tells you. You're not tired because you're weak. You're not stuck because you're unlucky. You're exhausted because you've spent years waiting for happiness to arrive like a package on your doorstep, and nobody's delivering it. Nobody ever was. It was never coming, not because you're broken, because you were waiting for something you were supposed to build. Today that changes. I'm going to walk you through 10 mindset shifts, not motivational fluff, not just think positive nonsense, real tested ideas from 2,000-year-old Stoic philosophy, backed by modern psychology, that will change how you handle stress, failure, and the noise in your own head. If you're actually ready to stop waiting and start building, type "I'm ready" right now before you keep watching. Let's get into it. Shift 1. Your mind is the one thing you actually own. Marcus Aurelius ruled the most powerful empire on earth, and even he understood something most people never figure out in a lifetime. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Let that sink in for a second. He had armies. He had wealth. He had more control over external circumstances than almost anyone in human history. And still, the thing he pointed to as the real source of power wasn't any of that. It was his own mind. Here's what most of us get wrong. We treat our thoughts like they're facts. Like if the thought, "I'm going to fail this," shows up in our head, it must be true, because why else would it be there? But thoughts aren't verdicts. They're guesses. They're old patterns shaped by fear, by things that happened to you years ago, by a nervous system that's still running software designed to keep cavemen alive. Your brain has something called a negativity bias. It's wired to remember threats more vividly than wins because for most of human history, forgetting a threat could get you killed, but forgetting a win just meant a missed opportunity. That trade-off made sense when the threat was a predator, in the grass. It makes a lot less sense when the threat is an email from your boss. So when your brain says, "I'll never get through this," don't just accept it. Interrogate it. Ask, is that actually true, or is that just fear talking? Have I survived every hard thing that's happened to me so far? The answer, every single time, is yes, because you're literally still here to ask the question. You are the walking, breathing evidence that you get through things. Your track record is undefeated. It has to be. That's what surviving means. This isn't about lying to yourself. It's not about forcing fake positivity or pretending everything is fine when it isn't. It's about refusing to let an unexamined, unchallenged thought run your entire day. Because the quality of your thoughts quietly becomes the quality of your life. Change what runs in your head on autopilot, and you change everything downstream of it. Your mood, your choices, your relationships, your energy. Think about the last time a single thought ruined your entire evening. Maybe it was, "They probably think I'm annoying," after a normal conversation. Maybe it was, "I'm behind everyone else my age." Notice how that one sentence, unexamined, quietly colored every hour after it. Your tone with your family, your appetite, your sleep. Now imagine catching that thought at the door instead of letting it walk straight into your evening uninvited. That's the entire skill. Not eliminating negative thoughts, nobody manages that. Just refusing to let them drive without a license. A simple tool. Whenever a thought spikes your stress, write it down exactly as it appeared in your head. Then write the evidence for it and the evidence against it like you're cross-examining a witness in a courtroom. 9 times out of 10, the thought collapses the moment you actually put it under light instead of letting it operate in the dark corners of your mind where it feels enormous. This is a 5-minute skill. It costs nothing, and it will save you more emotional energy than almost anything else on this list. Shift 2. Forget motivation, build a machine. Motivation is the friend who only shows up when you don't actually need help. It's there when you're already energized, already excited, already in a good mood, and it vanishes the exact moment things get difficult, which is, ironically, the only moment you actually needed it to carry you through. If you're waiting to feel like doing the work, you will wait your entire life. Feelings are unreliable narrators. They change with your sleep, your blood sugar, the weather, a bad conversation you had that morning. You cannot build a life on top of something that unstable. Discipline works differently. Discipline doesn't check in with your mood before showing up. It doesn't negotiate. It doesn't wait for perfect conditions because perfect conditions are a myth that keeps people stuck in the waiting room of their own lives. The Stoics had a practice for this called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. They mentally rehearsed hardship before it arrived, so when it actually showed up, they weren't caught off guard, scrambling, improvising from zero. They had already built the muscle. You can do the exact same thing with routine. Build your systems now, while things are calm, boring, and manageable, because they won't stay that way forever. Something will fall apart eventually. It always does. And when it does, you don't want to be relying on motivation, which is nowhere to be found on your worst days. You want structure. A 5-minute morning anchor you do without thinking. A wind-down ritual at night that signals to your body it's safe to rest. Something so automatic that even a version of you running on 4 hours of sleep and zero motivation still does it, because that's just what you do now. That's the whole secret. Not intensity, repetition. Discipline isn't a personality trait some people are born with and others aren't. It's a system you build once and then trust. Here's what that actually looks like in practice, not in theory. It's not wake up at 5 a.m. and cold plunge and journal for an hour. That's a highlight reel, not a system. And it collapses the first week you're exhausted. A real system is small enough to survive contact with a bad day. Wake up, drink a glass of water before your phone, 3 minutes of stretching, 1 sentence in a notebook about your main priority for the day. That's it. That's the whole morning. It's almost insultingly simple. And that's exactly why it survives the days. Motivation wouldn't have shown up for it all. Shift 3. Sort your energy into 2 piles. Epictetus was born enslaved. He didn't have freedom, wealth, or status. The things most people assume you need in order to feel in control of your life. And yet he became one of the most influential philosophers in human history. Because he figured out something that most free, wealthy, comfortable people never do. He taught that everything in life falls into one of 2 piles. Pile 1, things within your control. Pile 2, things outside it. And the entire secret to a peaceful life is knowing which pile something belongs to and refusing to waste your energy on the wrong one. You cannot control what other people think of you. You cannot control the economy, the weather, your bosses, mood on a given Tuesday, or whether the traffic is bad on your way to a meeting that matters. You cannot control other people's choices, their timelines, their opinions of your life. But you can control your effort, your attitude, the meaning you decide to assign to what happens to you, the actions you take in the face of difficulty, the words you choose to say, the boundaries you decide to set and actually hold. Most people spend the majority of their mental energy on pile 1. They replay a conversation from 3 weeks ago as if replaying it will somehow rewrite it. They rehearse worst-case scenarios about a future that hasn't happened yet, as if anxiety were somehow productive preparation instead of just suffering in advance. They obsess over what a stranger thinks of them, as if that thought is going to change based on how much they worry about it. And in doing all of that, they completely neglect the one domain where they actually hold real authority, their own choices, moment to moment, day to day. So here's a question worth sitting with right now. What am I currently worrying about that I have zero power to change? And once you've named it, ask the second question. What's one small action within my actual control that I can take today instead? That's where your energy belongs, not in the pile that was never yours to manage in the first place. Shift 4. Gratitude is a rewiring tool, not a greeting card. Gratitude gets dismissed a lot, usually by people who've only seen it packaged as a cute journal with a sunset on the cover. But strip away the aesthetic and look at what's actually happening biologically, and it's a completely different story. Neuroplasticity research shows that consistently practicing gratitude strengthens the neural pathways associated with contentment and positive emotion, while weakening the pathways tied to anxiety and threat detection. In plain terms, what you consistently pay attention to physically reshapes your brain over time. Gratitude isn't a mood, it's training. Seneca wrote that the wise man doesn't grieve for what he doesn't have, he rejoices in what he does. Most people live the exact opposite of that sentence without even realizing it. They fixate on what's missing, what hasn't arrived yet, what other people seem to have that they don't. And in doing that, they go completely blind to the abundance that's already sitting right in front of them, every single day, unnoticed. Here's the practice, and it's not complicated. Every night, write down 3 things you're grateful for. Not generic ones, specific ones. Not my family, but the exact way your kid laughed at something ridiculous earlier today. Not my health, but the fact that your legs carried you up a flight of stairs without you even thinking about it. Not good weather, but the exact temperature of the coffee that was, for once, exactly right. This isn't about pretending everything's perfect or denying real struggle. Both things exist in every single day, the hard and the good at the same time. Gratitude doesn't erase the hard, it just makes sure you're not blind to the good sitting right next to it. And whichever one you train your attention toward is the one that starts running your emotional life. If a written list feels forced at first, that's normal. Most people feel a little silly the first few nights. Stick with it anyway for 2 weeks before you judge whether it's working. The shift is quiet, not dramatic. You won't wake up one morning euphoric. You'll just notice a few weeks in that your default reaction to a bad moment is slightly less catastrophic than it used to be. That's the actual sign it's working. Not a lightning bolt, just a slightly softer landing. Shift 5. Cut the dead weight. You're carrying too much. Too many commitments you said yes to out of guilt instead of genuine desire. Too many notifications, demanding your attention for no real reason. Too many relationships you're maintaining out of obligation rather than actual connection. Too many open tabs in your brain, all at once, all the time. The Stoics practiced something called voluntary simplicity, not deprivation, clarity. They understood that complexity quietly drains you, while simplicity frees up the exact energy you need to build the life you actually want. Every unnecessary thing you're carrying, whether it's a possession, an obligation, or a worry, is taking up bandwidth that could be spent somewhere that actually matters to you. Take an honest inventory right now. What are you currently doing that doesn't line up with who you're trying to become? What obligations are you fulfilling purely out of guilt rather than care? What's stealing your focus all day and giving you absolutely nothing meaningful back? Cut it, not eventually when it's more convenient. Now. Every yes you give to something that drains you is automatically a no to something that could actually fuel you. Every hour spent mindlessly scrolling is an hour you didn't spend creating something that matters. Every relationship you keep purely out of obligation is energy you could be investing in people who genuinely uplift you. Ask yourself, if I could only keep 3 priorities this week, what would they actually be? Build your schedule around those 3 things, and let everything else fall away without guilt. Peace was never about accumulating more. It comes from needing less. Quick check-in before we continue. If you've made it this far, pause for 1 second. Out of the 5 shifts you've just heard, which one made you slightly uncomfortable? Not the one that sounded nice and the one that made you think, yeah, I actually need to work on that. That discomfort is useful information. It's usually pointing straight at the exact shift that would help you the most right now. Hold on to that one. We'll come back to it at the end. Now let's keep going because the next 4 shifts get even more practical. Shift 6. The obstacle isn't blocking the path, it is the path. The Stoics believed obstacles aren't interruptions to your life. They're the actual material your life is made of, not a glitch in the system, a feature of it. Marcus Aurelius wrote it directly. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Every challenge you're currently facing is building a version of strength you didn't have access to before it showed up. Every setback is an opportunity to develop resilience you can't fake or shortcut. Every failure is raw data you can actually use to improve, if you're willing to look at it honestly instead of running from it. But only if you choose to see it that way. That part matters. Most people collapse the moment something goes wrong. They take it personally. They read the difficulty as proof they weren't meant to succeed, that the universe has it out for them specifically, that they should just quietly give up and settle for less than they wanted. Viktor Frankl survived a concentration camp, a level of suffering most of us will thankfully never come close to, and walked out with a single insight that changed how an entire generation thought about hardship. Everything can be taken from you except your ability to choose your response to what happens. You can't always control the event. You can always control the meaning you assign to it, so stop asking, why is this happening to me? Start asking, what is this teaching me, and how is it making me stronger? That single shift in the question you're asking yourself will completely change your relationship with every hard thing you'll ever face. Not because the hard thing disappears, but because your relationship to it does. Shift 7. Close your day on purpose. The Stoics treated evening reflection as a non-negotiable ritual, not a nice-to-have. They reviewed their day, not to sit in judgment or spiral into regret, but to actually learn something, recalibrate, and walk into tomorrow with a clean slate instead of dragging yesterday's mess along with them. Seneca asked himself the same set of questions every single night. What bad habit did I resist today? What vice did I not give in to? In what way am I even slightly better than I was this morning? Notice, none of that is about punishing yourself. It's about awareness. It's about closing the loop on the day, so you're not still carrying unresolved tension into tomorrow's version of yourself. When you actually reflect on your day, you create closure. You process what happened instead of letting it silently haunt the background of your mind. You start noticing patterns you'd otherwise completely miss. You celebrate small wins you'd normally overlook entirely. You course correct without needing to attach shame to the correction. Most people go to bed with their mind still fully churning, replaying a conversation from that afternoon, rehashing a regret from last week, worrying about a meeting 3 days out. Then they wonder why they can't sleep, why they wake up anxious before the day has even started, why every single day feels like a continuation of yesterday's chaos instead of an actual fresh start. Break that pattern tonight. Give yourself 5 honest minutes before bed. What went well today? What did I learn? What do I want to do differently tomorrow? Write it down if that helps you, or just sit with it quietly and let the day actually settle instead of following you into sleep. This one small practice hands your power back to you. It's a reminder that you're not a passive passenger riding through your own life. You're the one actually writing it. And tomorrow is a blank page, still waiting on you to fill it. Shift 8. Protect what gets into your mind. You are what you consume. And that's not just about food. It's about information, media, conversations, the people you surround yourself with, the environments you spend your time in. Everything you let into your awareness quietly shapes your mood, your beliefs about what's possible, and eventually, who you become. And most people are shockingly reckless with what they let in. They open their phone first thing in the morning and scroll straight into outrage and comparison, flooding their nervous system with stress before they've even gotten out of bed. They keep listening to people who consistently drain them. They expose themselves to a constant stream of negativity and manufactured controversy engineered specifically to hijack their attention, and then wonder why they feel anxious, scattered, and low without ever asking what's actually feeding that feeling. The Stoics were deliberate, almost obsessive, about what they let into their minds. They chose their influences on purpose. They guarded their attention like it was sacred because it was, and it still is. You cannot build a peaceful inner life while flooding it with chaos on a daily basis. You cannot build resilience while surrounding yourself with people who glorify victimhood as an identity. You cannot think clearly while consuming content that's specifically designed to trigger and distract you for someone else's profit. Be genuinely ruthless about auditing this. Who are you actually following? What are you reading? What conversations are you engaging in on repeat? What environments are you spending your time inside of? If it doesn't make you sharper, kinder, or more grounded, cut it without guilt. Your attention is the single most valuable resource you own. Stop handing it out for free to things that quietly weaken you and start investing it deliberately in what actually strengthens you. Shift 9. Choose your own discomfort. The Stoics practiced something called negative visualization, deliberately imagining loss, hardship, and difficulty in advance. Not to be pessimistic, not to be gloomy for the sake of it, but to strip fear of the power it holds over you when you've never actually rehearsed facing it. When you voluntarily expose yourself to discomfort on your own terms, you prove something to yourself that no affirmation ever could. You prove, with actual evidence, that you can handle more than you assumed. You expand your own capacity. You build real confidence, not through repeating nice phrases to yourself in the mirror, but through lived experience that backs it up. Take a cold shower, fast for a day. Go for a run on a day you genuinely don't feel like it. Sit in 10 minutes of complete silence instead of immediately reaching for your phone the second there's a gap. Have the difficult conversation you've been quietly avoiding for weeks. These small, deliberate acts of discipline compound over time in a way that's easy to underestimate. They teach you that discomfort was never actually the enemy. Avoidance was. They prove to you, one small rep at a time, that you're stronger than the excuses you've been telling yourself. Most people spend their entire lives chasing comfort, optimizing for ease, avoiding anything that feels remotely difficult. And then, they're blindsided and unprepared the moment real adversity shows up uninvited. The moment life demands more from them than they've ever asked of themselves. Don't be most people. Build your capacity for difficulty now, in small chosen doses, while the stakes are low, so that when real adversity eventually arrives, and it will, you're already ready for it. Shift 10. Turn outward. Here's a paradox that quietly changes everything once you actually test it. The fastest way to feel better is to stop thinking about yourself for a few minutes. When you're stuck inside your own head, everything feels heavier than it actually is. Overwhelming, insurmountable, permanent. But the moment you turn outward, the moment you help someone else, show a small act of kindness, or contribute to something bigger than your own immediate survival, something shifts almost instantly. Service is the antidote to self-absorption. It reminds you that you matter beyond your own struggle, that your actions genuinely have impact on someone else's day, and that even in the middle of your own hard season, you still have something real and valuable to give. This isn't about ignoring your own needs or martyring yourself for other people. It means recognizing that purpose and connection are actual needs too, just as essential as rest, safety, and everything else on the list. Ask yourself, who can I help today? What's one small act of kindness I can offer without needing it to be grand or camera-ready? A message someone wasn't expecting, a genuine smile, holding the door a second longer than necessary, actually listening to someone instead of waiting for your turn to talk. These moments quietly accumulate over time, and they remind you of something essential you can forget when you're deep in your own head. You're not here just to survive the day, you're here to contribute to it. Closing. So here's where that leaves you. 10 mindset shifts that can genuinely change your relationship with happiness, peace, and resilience. Not overnight and not perfectly, but for real, over time. Remember earlier, when I asked you to hold on to the one shift that made you slightly uncomfortable? Go back to that one right now, in your head. Not the shift that sounded the nicest, the one that pointed at something you already knew you'd been avoiding. That's not a coincidence, and it's not random. That's usually your own mind quietly telling you exactly where to start if you're willing to actually listen to it instead of talking over it with something more comfortable. You've seen that. Joy was never something that happens to you the moment the stars finally align in your favor. It's something you build deliberately through daily choices most people never bother to make consistently. You've learned to take control of your thoughts instead of letting them silently control you, to rely on structure instead of the fickle, unreliable nature of motivation, to focus your energy on what you can actually control and release the rest without guilt or resentment. You've learned to practice gratitude on purpose, to simplify your life without apologizing for it, and to reframe adversity as exactly the growth opportunity it usually turns out to be in hindsight. You've learned to close your day with honest reflection, to protect what you let into your mind, to choose discomfort on your own terms before life chooses it for you, and to turn your focus outward when your own head gets too loud. These aren't ideas to nod along to and forget by tomorrow afternoon. They're practices, and practices require repetition, patience, and a willingness to stumble without quitting. You won't master all 10 overnight. You'll forget. You'll slip back into old patterns of waiting and hoping instead of building. That's fine. That's not failure. That's just what the process actually looks like for every single person who's ever changed anything about themselves. This was never about perfection. It's about direction. One slightly better choice today than yesterday. Every time you catch a spiraling thought and choose to redirect it, that's progress. Every time you show up for your routine on a day you didn't feel like it, that's real strength. Every time you focus on what's actually within your control instead of what isn't, that's wisdom in motion. So start today, not Monday, not next month. Not once things finally calm down, because they won't. Not fully, not ever completely. Pick one shift, just one, and commit to practicing it for the next 7 days. Maybe it's the gratitude list before bed. Maybe it's the evening reflection. Maybe it's muting one account that's been quietly draining you for months. It genuinely does not matter which one you start with. What matters is that you actually start, instead of waiting for permission, perfect conditions, or some external sign that you're finally ready. You're ready right now. Happiness isn't coming to rescue you, and no one's arriving to save you from your own mind. But you can absolutely save yourself. One choice, one small practice, one ordinary day at a time. The Stoics figured this out over 2,000 years ago. Now you know it too. Stop waiting. Start building. Your life is genuinely happening right now, in this exact moment, not in some better version of the future you keep postponing it to. Make it count. And if you're worried that 7 days isn't enough time to feel a real difference, you're right, it isn't. Not fully. But it's enough time to prove to yourself that you can actually stick with something instead of abandoning it by day 3 like usual. That's the actual win in week 1, not transformation. Proof. Proof that you're someone who follows through even in a small way, even when nobody's watching and there's no applause waiting at the end of it. Everything after that first week gets built on top of that one piece of evidence. That's how every single person who's ever changed their life actually did it. Not with one dramatic leap, but with one boring, repeated, unremarkable choice, made on a day nobody was going to notice either way. If you're ready to stop waiting and actually start building the life you deserve, drop a comment below. I build my own happiness. Subscribe if this actually helped you, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay present, stay strong,